Welcome to the Right to Reason, episode 29. I'm your host, Robert Stanley. Have you ever wanted to ask questions about transgender issues but weren't really sure how to ask? Well, that's exactly how I felt. I'm just a regular dude with regular dude questions, and today I just blurt those questions out unabashed and accomplish something that seems to be rare in this current time of posts and tweets, likes, shares, internet warriors, and jumping to conclusions in all caps. I listen. I just listen and try to understand. And guess what happens? I discover it's not so hard to figure out. In fact, after you hear this episode, you'll agree that this volatile topic of public discourse actually makes a lot of sense. Let's get started.
We are going to take our fight for economic justice, for social justice, for environmental sanity, for a world of peace.
Bullying and violence are really the same thing. I think bullying is a very sort of polite way to talk about violence, and it's extreme violence that far too many trans people experience.
You know, the old saying is sexuality is who you sleep with. You know, gender identity is who do you go to bed as. It's a totally different subject, and you cannot compare sexuality and gender identity. And it's a hard thing. Honestly, I've been fighting this war for the last couple of years, and I don't even think in my lifetime most people will get it.
I think to myself, how could I deny anyone the right to have that incredible bond with another individual in life? To me, it seems almost cruel.
Eric and Matthew from Odd Atheist Friends join us to answer questions like, is being trans a choice? Is it just an identity thing? What's the difference between trans and gay? What if your daughter is going to be in a locker room with a trans person? What does the trans community want to see in terms of bathroom laws? What is gender dysphoria? How does this affect people in the workplace? Should a transgender person tell you their gender identity when you're dating? What about before sex? We get into all that, and what is the proper response to someone when they correct you by saying, we find that term you just used offensive? That actually happens. I'm still learning about these things, and I say something that these guys correct me on. What do you say in that moment? What is your response to that? Matthew and Eric are super laid back and very funny while they guide me through these topics today. I came into this interview with two goals. I'm here to ask questions, and I'm here to listen. Let's listen together.
Culture is not your friend. Culture is for other people's convenience and the convenience of various institutions, churches, companies.
We very naturally, as a cognitive and behavioral imperative, we form descriptions of the world, and we try to figure out what's going on.
Who based the design of rockets on science, they reach the moon. It works, bitches.
Hey guys, before our interview, I just wanted to direct you to the Right to Reason YouTube page. If you don't know it's there, you might want to just check out YouTube and type in the Right to Reason. Lots of cool stuff on there. We talk about capitalism, why our system is dying, talk about socialism, Jeff Sessions, secular morality, Trump's ties to Russia, how to never lose an argument, Spicer and the military-industrial complex, the veil of ignorance, propaganda, why conservatives and liberals seem to be fighting each other so much at each other's throats. What do we have in common? Nuclear war, Krishna. Arn Ra talks about the drug war. Lots of videos on biblical contradiction. There's a How to Logic video inspired by Matt Dillahunty. We've got a couple Matt Dillahunty videos. The Kent Hovind debate. Michael Shermer talks free will, Charlottesville. Jerry DeWitt, sexy violent science. Thomas Westbrook, Michael Moore on autism. 25 best moments of the Right to Reason. Atheist versus pastor debate. Coffee and Pie with a Christian apologist. Blake Juta, Dan Barker, you name it, it's on there. Check it out. All right, right now, Odd Atheist Friends. Today I am really happy to introduce you lovely people to the Odd Atheist Friends. Eric and Matthew, happy to have you guys.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Fuck your God, goddammit.
We can't drop F-bombs anymore. This is now a PBS show.
I'm sorry.
In the children's network, or I don't know. No, it's fucking cool. So,
dickhead.
You're like, how many kids did I teach that word to today? My son keeps saying frick. Like he's 10 years
that's
old,
like the
and he's
spot right before.
yeah, and he'll say it like all the time. Like we'll be playing a video game together and be like, "Come on, Dad, freaking get it!" And I'm like, "Hey, like I know you're not swearing, but hey." You want to tell us a little bit about Odd Atheist Friends?
Basically, me and Matthew met several years ago, and the main thing we had in common is that we're both atheists and we're both odd. And we both bring two different viewpoints to the show. I'm a 23-year-old trans guy. I'm in college. I'm from the South. Matthew is from Chicago, and he's a Navy veteran, and he was super conservative Christian, and he has like a lot of police and military experience and just different viewpoints in life than I do. So I think it makes for an interesting show. And we talk about dicks a lot.
We do. Eric and I are the odd friends because I knew Eric a long time ago when Eric was a teenage girl on a blogging website. Like, I'm not kidding, like 13 or 14 years ago. And so I used to get on this thing and like talk. I was on my third ship, and so I used to like vent about how shitty my fucking day was all the time and that kind of stuff. And somehow like Eric was writing poetry when Eric was living under his false name. And so I was like, oh, that's good poetry. And then we just became friends through that. And so about 8 months ago, it was like I was really kicking around the idea. And then, like, right after, like, Trump got elected, I was, like, on Facebook, I'm like, any of my friends want to do a podcast? And Eric was like, me.
So if you guys had become, like, even closer, intimate friends back then, and then started dating, and then, like...
What the fuck,
and, like,
man?
later on, Eric was like, I'm a dude, you're gay now, and then you'd be like, damn it, I had no idea I was gay.
I'm not gay.
Yeah, actually, no. All right. Before I came out, I didn't know I was trans, or I didn't have the words to describe it when I was younger. So I didn't find out what being a transgender man was until like college. And at that point, I was in a 3 or 4 year long-term relationship with a guy, thinking I was a straight woman or something. Although I felt like I wasn't a straight woman. I felt like something was off, but I didn't know what it was. And then I figured out what transgender men were, and after a couple of years of like thinking about that, I figured out like that's who I am. And then I came out to him, and he's like, well, I'm not gay, so yeah. And I was like, but love should trump everything. And apparently it doesn't anyway.
No, it doesn't. Ask my ex-wife, fucking cunt.
But yeah, so
I think at that point you could even say, well, maybe you are gay, and you just didn't know that sexuality was more of a vast 3-dimensional spectrum.
Yeah.
It's not like maybe this or that. And speaking of that, I'm so glad you're here with us, Eric, because when I was on your show before, and I had a lot of fun with Matthew, you weren't with us at the time, and there were a lot of questions that I had speaking about transgender issues. I was hoping that maybe we could get into some of that today. I also want to say, though, in respect to the listener, I'm ignorant about this stuff. And if I say anything that offends any listeners that may be trans or may have someone close to them that's trans, that's not my intention at all. I'm just trying to figure it out, and Eric is trying to help me kind of guide me through this to learn more about it.
Well, Eric has definitely, helped me along through some of this too. I mean, because I'm still evolving. And like I said before, I didn't meet my first trans person until I went to college 7 years ago after I retired. So, I met my first one in college, and then Eric was like my first like long-term friend that I've known for a long time. And I met Alexa Marissa McCool back in December in Chicago during the GAM Live that was in Chicago. But Eric is like the first person that I've known for an extended period of time that I know who came out, and he was like, I am a guy. And I'm like, cool. Because if even somebody like me who 15 years ago would have called Eric all kinds of horrifying names can be like, okay, that's who you are, that's who this is, then I think a lot of people can make that same journey, because I know I did.
What does it mean to be trans? Is this just an identity thing? Because that's how it's often presented by people that are having trouble accepting that some people are trans, is they'll say, well, you can just identify as however you want. Is it fair to say that this is just a form of identity that you're putting on yourself, or like, is this something that someone's born with? Like, can you kind of help walk us through that?
You can figure out you're trans through a number of different ways. I don't know if you're necessarily born that way, but I think your environment that you're raised in and everything will affect it and how you feel. And like, maybe you're born with it. I don't know. There's not been a lot of research done in it. But what you need to understand, like, primarily, first off, is the differences between gender, sex, and sexuality. So sex is just what you're assigned at birth, basically. Typically, you're either assigned male because you have a penis, or you're assigned female because you have a vagina. Then obviously, or maybe not so obvious, I know a lot of people that don't know about this, but you can be something in between. You can be intersex, which can mean you have ambiguous genitals, or you have a mixture, like you have a penis and female chromosomes, or any mixture of anything, right? A lot of people can be intersex and not know they're intersex because they have normal genitals, but they have different chromosomes, and why would you ever get that checked, It's
like the people with like XXY and XYY, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, all kinds of things can be changed, like typically female things can be mixed with typically male things.
So if I say I'm a man
yeah,
because I have a penis,
yeah,
you would say that statement is inherently flawed because my genitalia and my gender identification don't always go synonymously with everyone, and that wouldn't be an appropriate way to understand gender. Would that be
right?
A fair characterization of your point?
Absolutely. So you could say you are a biological male because you have a penis, and that would be completely fair. And then you could say you're cisgender, which means you're a cisgender man, which means you identify with being assigned a man at birth, right? So your gender identity, it doesn't have to match your genitals. It's just how you feel inside and how you feel comfortable being portrayed in the world. For me, for instance, I was never comfortable being seen as a woman. I wasn't comfortable being called by a female name. And I also experienced gender dysphoria, which means that I feel like my body doesn't fit right. Like, I feel like my breasts shouldn't be there. I feel like I should have a penis. I don't. So not all trans people experience gender dysphoria, but a lot of them do. And there's also just social dysphoria, which means you want the right pronouns to be used for you. For instance, I really enjoy it when people call me he and him because that feels like it fits me right.
Would it be the same as if I was a woman, but I was in my body? Like I'm Robert Stanley, man with a penis. That's how I introduce myself at parties also. So but I did that at a job interview, and it just didn't go well.
Well, at least you didn't take it out and show it to them.
That was after they told me I didn't get the job, though. But anyway, so
helicopter.
So would it be the same as if if I felt like a woman and I was, or if I guess it would be better to say if I was a woman, but I had this body? Would that be a good way to understand it? Like that's how I that would help me kind of understand where you're coming from if I just thought of myself that way for a moment.
Kind of, that you could maybe understand a little bit of the body dysphoria that way. A good way I like to explain it, or I've heard it explained, is so you exist as Robert in your body, and people know you as Robert, and they call you he, right?
Right.
Now imagine if they called you, I don't know, Roberta and she all the time, but like not in a funny way. Like that's just how they always seriously talk to you. Like, I know your first reaction would be, that's hilarious, because, like, why would they call me a girl and why would they call me Roberta? But that's, just imagine that's how they're seeing you as a person, and they do not see Robert, they do not see a man, they see a woman.
You're right. Over time, that would bother me, especially with my close personal relationships, not even just in the public ones, but where people that I want to know me, it's almost as if they really didn't know who I was. I wouldn't have a way to properly connect to others, I think.
Yeah. That's exactly how it feels.
See, my first impression, because whenever I think of genitalia, I think of sexuality. Like, and I think that that's just how we all kind of, for most of us, that's how we feel, and we don't really think of, whenever I think of my hand, I don't think of grabbing things. I don't think of the function of it, you know? And your genitalia does more than just sex, you know? But that's the first thing that pops in my head. So whenever you say, Robert, if you had the genitals of a woman, for instance, if I had breasts and a vagina, I would be turned on by myself, I think. You know, like whenever I looked in the mirror, I'd be like, hey, this is a hot naked body I have here. You know, like like I always ask the wife, you know, why don't you play with your boobs more? You know, like I play with your boobs more than you do. That's, you know, like why wouldn't you play with them? They're awesome. And she's like, well, you know, they're boobs. They're my boobs. You know, so, but I feel like if I had boobs, I would play with them all the time. So it's kind of a weird, like whatever you say, if I had a woman's body, my mind immediately goes to sex. And like, am I missing something here?
No, I think that makes sense because I don't know your sexuality. I'm assuming you're just attracted to women though.
Yeah.
Okay, so because you're attracted to women, if you had a woman's body, you would obviously be more attracted to your own body. I guess the same goes for lesbians. I guess, I don't know. Like, cisgender lesbians probably enjoy their bodies, like, sexually. Like, they're attracted to their own body. I don't know.
Matt, help me out. If you had a pair of tits on you, you'd play with them in the mirror all the time.
Yeah,
right?
but I think that we're looking at this in the same way, Robert. I think that it's really hard for us to see this point of view because that's not how we're wired. Because I am a cis hetero man who's attracted to women. Now, I've said that I can look at another guy and go, that's a good looking dude, but I don't want to have sex with him. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
right.
So I can appreciate, you know, like a good looking guy, man. That's a good looking dude. He's put together well, but yeah, I don't want to be with him. So, but I look at my wife and I'm just like, hey, baby, what's up? You know what I'm saying? And so, you know, I'm the same way that you are in this. I think that if I was a cis woman, that I don't know. I mean, would I be a lesbian then if I was attracted to women? Yes, but I don't know because I don't know. I mean, I think maybe that with society's programming, that you're programmed as a woman to be, as a person, that they try to program you to be cisgender and heterosexual. So, yeah. So it would be next to impossible for me to try to fit into the situation, and I can't. I can't wrap my mind around it because I am a cis hetero man, and so I can empathize with transgender friends, but I can't sympathize. I just can't. So I can only be supportive because that's literally the only thing I can do.
I'm totally comfortable with someone saying, this is how I feel, this is how I identify, I have this experience and it's different from your experience and different from how you experience life. In the same sense as a gay guy can say, yeah, I'm gay, like I didn't choose to be gay. I was born gay. I've always been gay. I just like men, even though I'm a man. And I hear that, and it's not a problem for me, even though I simply can't relate.
Yeah.
You know, I just say, okay, I'll just take your word for it. Boom, done. Problem's over. And there's no like need for like huge social or political debate about this. I just take your word for it. And I kind of feel if we treated the trans issue the same way, it takes a lot of the pressure off of nitpicking and defining every little detail if we just say, okay, cool, that's you, man. Do your thing.
You know, I think where a lot of this comes from is speaking as a former conservative, fundamentalist, asshole fucking Christian, I think what freaks a lot of these people out is the idea of really pretty much like gay butt stuff. I think that... I'm serious. I mean, you know, and there's kind of a duality in this too, where it's like a double standard, where it's like Christian guys is like, they'll say, oh, well, you know, two lesbians, you know, that's fine. But two guys, they get all fucking groated out by it. You know what I'm saying? And so that's like the whole fucking point is that I think a lot of these fucking Christian assholes are just fucking weirded out by gay men. Do you know what I'm saying? And so they extrapolate it out to the rest of the gay community and the trans community, that kind of stuff. And they're not the same. Just because you're trans doesn't necessarily mean you're gay. Do you know what I'm saying? these guys or these people, you know, these fucking fundamentalist assholes of pretty much all stripes, I think that that's where they get weirded the fuck out. And the problem is that maybe this weird notion that they think like a gay person is going to hit on them, whether if they're a male or a female, that they're going to be weirded out that a gay person is going to hit on them. I'm sorry, but almost no gay men that I've ever been aware of is going to hit on some fucking fat redneck fucking asshole. It's just not going to fucking happen.
Well, it seems like the fear with both trans and the fear about homosexuality, to me, is a personal fear that maybe that they're gay themselves, or maybe that they don't have as much security in their own gender themselves, and then B, that they're afraid that the way that they treat the opposite sex is the way that the same sex is now going to start treating them. So in the sense of, you hold the door for a woman and look at her ass as she walks by, well, some guy might do that to me.
Yeah, well, you don't want to be objectified.
Oh no, heaven forbid that you get objectified.
Exactly. I think it's personal insecurity and hypocrisy is where most of this phobia comes from. But in that regard, as much as these issues are that I'm about to bring up are extremely rare and not really the topic at hand, but they do present, by they I mean the opposing side here, you know, the bigoted group, as it were, but they do present some questions that are difficult for me to answer whenever I'm defending trans people. So whenever they ask me a question, and maybe you guys can help me with this, but they'll say, well, what about if your daughter is going to be in a locker room scenario or something, you know, some kind of, you know, after school sports scenario, and there's a trans person in there with them. How do you feel about that? And my first reaction is, I don't really feel comfortable with that. No, you're right. I don't know how to address this. Like, I want to be able to stand up for people identifying however they want to. But then on the other end, I could see some implications that are a little bit scary. Sure. So, like, help me walk through that.
Eric, do you mind if I start?
Go ahead.
I have not been aware of, and this is coming from the cis former fundy asshole, has done a little bit of research, and there has not been one documented attack of a trans person onto a cis person. It has just not fucking happened. The fear is it's unrealistic. And also, we have laws on top of that protect people already. They're called, like, rape laws and that kind of stuff. So there doesn't need to be these fucking bullshit bathroom laws that is all based in fucking religious hysteria. That's all they're based in. You know, people just want to go to the bathroom. You know what I'm saying? And so, like, in a women's bathroom, in a female's bathroom, it's all stalls. You know what I'm saying? And so, anybody who goes to use the bathroom is going to the bathroom in a stall. So that's like a non-issue. Eric, go ahead and do with the other part. Some other parts. Put your mind up in there, because I just think it's bullshit.
I definitely...
Well,
I understand.
Go ahead,
I understand the concerns. I think in our society, we put a lot of negative connotations on being naked, and a lot of negative connotations on genitals. In other societies, it's not so prevalent. So that's an interesting thing to work with in America and other places. But aside from that, as a trans person, I'll tell you I haven't been in a locker room in a long time because I don't know which one I should go in. I look quite masculine. I'm growing facial hair. I mean, I have the wrong body parts to go in the men's locker room, and I look too masculine to go in the women's locker room. So I don't know which one I should use. And, like, I'm scared to go in either one because I don't want to make the women feel uncomfortable, and I don't want to, you know, not fit in the men's room. Same goes with bathrooms, actually. A lot of the time, I don't know which bathroom I should use, especially if I'm, like, in a southern small town. Like, I don't know. Like, if I go in the men's room, am I going to get, like, some serious side eyes, or, like, are they going to beat me up? Like, I've been in some sketchy places. I don't know. But it is really scary because I never know which one to go in, and I'm not looking to expose myself to anyone. I definitely am very uncomfortable with my own body, so I'd much rather be in a stall or anything like that. That was an option. So I understand the concern, but if the people could see it from the trans person's point of view, they just feel like they don't have access to these services, and like they just want to be treated equally.
Wow, you both made great points there. Matt saying it's really a non-issue, and Eric saying, well, it actually is an issue, but it's not an issue in terms of the rest of us being victims of trans nudity. It's the issue for the trans people, because they're the ones that are worried. They're the ones that are going through this scenario, trying to figure out how to weave through society's confusions with it. So that's a great point. I didn't even consider that perspective whenever like my question of saying, well, what about the locker room? The idea of saying, yeah, what about the locker room? What about the trans person going in the locker room? What are they supposed to do? You know, it's not like they're just trying to go around flashing people. Why would I automatically assume? It's not even like I was assuming it. It's just that's the first place my mind goes, is to automatically vilify something that I see as different.
Yeah.
It's not that asking the question is wrong, but I think that's the error of the question itself. And I'm really glad you guys cleared that up.
My whole point is that I just want everybody to be safe. And that's including any trans people and any other people who identify how they identify in said locker room. Nobody wants to be unsafe. That's the whole thing, is that we need to get over this fucking bullshit of this unreasonable fear that's causing people to act hysterically. And what I mean by that is, these people are like, oh my God, trans people are going to come into our bathrooms and attack our children. No, you fucking redneck asshole, they're not. They're more scared of every other person than you are of them, because there's so few trans people, and they are more the victim of a crime than almost any other marginalized group in American society right now, or world society right now. I mean, to be gay in some country is enough to get you killed, let alone trans. Fuck.
Yeah, actually, interesting. I have a few statistics. First off, trans women of color have a 12% chance of being murdered in their life. 12%.
Oh my God. 12%.
Yeah.
That's an astronomical number.
And
12%.
Yeah. And trans.
I mean, it sounds like a small number whenever you hear it, but I mean, whenever you're talking about being murdered, if I had a 12% chance of being murdered, I would be extremely paranoid all the time. I would be afraid to be around people.
I'm a white guy in Chicago, and my chances of being killed is like 1 in 50,000 or some shit like that. 12% for a trans woman of color. It's an astronomical number.
Yeah.
My chances of being murdered is a little bit higher than yours, Matt, but that's just because I'm an asshole. So I own that. I own that. I gotta.
Interestingly enough, though, trans people also have a much higher UTI and kidney infection rate, because we have a tendency to hold going to the bathroom if we're in public because we can't.
That's sad.
What was it? I was listening to another podcast, and they were talking about Tycho Brahe. I think that's how you say his name. And basically he died from... It was the custom of the time to not get up and go to the bathroom during dinners when the king was there. So he burst his bladder and died 3 days later. So, yeah, we have a thing in the military. It's like, eat when you can, sleep when you can, and go to the bathroom when you can, because you never know when you're going to get the chance again.
Yeah, but I mean, if I had to live in a way where I'm always worried about how I will be treated, or also I would be worried about how uncomfortable I'm making other people. Even if they are bigoted assholes or something, it's like, I'm not trying to do this. I don't want you guys to feel weird. I just want to go into McDonald's and get my hamburger just like you, but I'm having to deal with this anxiety about going to the bathroom. That itself, what a privilege the rest of us have by never worrying about that.
It's a horrifying way to live.
What would you like to see, Eric, happen in the public discourse, and in response to just simple things like bathrooms and locker rooms or what have you, or maybe just how we talk about it all together? But what needs to happen for trans people to not have to feel that way.
Gender neutral bathrooms are great. A gender neutral locker room option. I know a few places have it, but not a lot. That would be great. Or like single stall locker room type shower things. But basically we just kind of need a whole societal shift to accepting trans people and realizing that a trans woman going to the bathroom isn't the equivalent of her swinging her dick around your children. Like, that's what people think it is, and it's not that.
Yeah. It's vilifying what's different. That's all it is. That's all. It's just like in racism, where that person has different skin than me. What's wrong with them? Well, nothing's wrong with them. Nothing's wrong with either of you. And I think, and that's the whole thing with Trump too. But Trump just came out about a month ago and said, well, we can't have trans people in the military. It was just a bullshit distraction, but it was so sad to see that, because I thought, boy, this really perpetuates the thing that we're trying to fight against in this country.
Yeah, and a lot of people just don't realize how difficult it can be being trans, and a lot of people think it's a choice, and it's not. Like, I would not choose this. I'm not sure why anyone would want to choose this, because it's hard, and it costs money, and it hurts a lot, and I got hired for an awesome job last year, or well, like, I don't know, 6 months ago or something, and I went through the hiring process, and then when we got to my legal name and everything, they found out obviously it doesn't match what I use every day and what's on my resume, and then they told me I didn't actually have the job.
What the fuck? Just because of that? I mean, people go by different names all the time.
Well, it wasn't just that. It was like they found out I was trans, and then they said you can either go by your birth name and present as a woman for this job, or you can not have this job. And I said, I guess I'll just not have this job.
I mean, was the job somehow having something to do? Like, I'm not asking what it was in particular, but was it having something to do with gender in some way, where that might have been confusing to customers or something?
It was a geothermal research job.
See, but that's so much bullshit.
It was in a third world country, and I think that their concern was my safety. But I'm already so male. I'm pretty much male passing at least 75% of the time. So it would have just been more confusing for them, I think.
Man, I'm really sorry that happened. That's so much bullshit. Like, I understand to some extent. Like, I can't work at Hooters. You know what I mean? And I get
I don't know,
that.
man. I got some moves I might be able to pass, except for my belly.
Yeah, but you know, like, people are chicken wing sales are gonna plummet.
Yes,
but
they will.
So I understand that. Yeah, yes, I am not allowed to work there because of my gender and because of my appearance. So I could see how in some ways that maybe there could be some issues regarding gender and employment, but doing, like, what did you say, it was geological surveying?
Yeah, basically.
There was a trans woman who was murdered by a Marine. Well, first off, so they go to a hotel room, they have sex. And
oh, I remember this. Yeah, that was a couple weeks ago, right?
Some time ago. I'm not sure of the time.
Yeah. This is still pretty fresh. Yeah.
So anyway, so this Marine chokes out this woman, a trans woman, choked out this trans woman, then drug her to the toilet and drowned her in the toilet. And
oh my God.
Yeah. And so this is where, you know, it's like, this is like the same bullshit of like where somebody freaks out because supposedly a gay hit on them or something like that. This is that same bullshit.
A gay. Yeah.
You know?
I know what you mean.
Yeah. So I think that a lot of people who are self-loathing and self-closeted people who don't realize that they are attracted to a trans person or whatever, you know what I'm saying? That they're attracted to something that society has told them that it's not cool to be attracted to. And so they freak the fuck out. Gay panic or trans panic or whatever the fuck it's called. It's bullshit. Because for one, this Marine had sex with her and then freaked out. Yeah, I don't buy it. I don't buy it for a second.
Yeah, and courts allow the panic defense, especially if it's someone murdering a trans person, because they think that it's okay for someone to panic about possibly being gay and then murder someone.
So this person strangled the woman till she passed out, then dragged her to a toilet and drowned her in a toilet. To me, that's murder. I mean, it's just straight up murder. I mean, I could almost see the point, almost, where you choke somebody. You know what I'm saying? But I don't buy the panic defense. I think that this person had a flash of self-loathing and self-hate and then snapped. That's what I think.
If I'm out on a date with someone, we meet, online or through work or, whatever scenario, we get along, we go on a date, things start happening, we want to take it to the next level. And let's just say, like, right up to that last moment, this has been a trans person but hasn't told me about it. I'm looking at this person and they take their clothes off and I see male genitalia. The first thing I would feel, I don't think I would feel so much anger toward that person. It certainly should have come up, I think, just because if we're committing to be
it
this,
should have come up. Fuck you, man.
Close. Not the erection itself. Obviously, if we're getting this intimate, that should have been a discussion that we should have had. At that one moment, I don't think I would feel anger toward that person. I think it would make me rethink my own sexuality and say, I was attracted to you all along. In fact, I'm standing here, I'm still attracted to you, so maybe there's something I don't understand about myself. And that's why I think exactly what you're saying, that person murdered the other person because he felt insecure about his own sexuality. It had nothing to do with the trans person.
Exactly. And so we had this discussion on one of our recent episodes where I posted this thing. It was about, should trans people identify before? And it's just like, have you not had sex before? Aren't you aware of things that happen biologically to people? I just think that open communication is definitely a must, but it's just like, I just don't think these people were I just don't think that they're sexually aware. And I also think that, like what you were saying, Robert, is that they need to self-realize what they're thinking about and what they are. Because if they get to the point and then they realize, hey, wait a minute, this is here, but I'm not attracted to you anymore, then there's something off about them, not the person that they're with. It's a you problem, not a them problem.
Yeah. Do you agree there, Eric? If someone's trans, that they should tell the other person whenever they're dating, or if the potential for sex is there, that's something that they should announce? Or would you say that that's none of the other person's business?
I think it depends on the particular situation, but always before sex, definitely 100%. I'm always very open about my trans status, like when I'm trying to date someone or have sex or anything. Like, I want to know that person's okay with it. I'm not looking to be with someone that's gonna, like, hate me or something. But I can understand for, maybe for whatever reason, maybe safety, or just, maybe you just want to feel like a normal person for once. And you go on a date with someone and you don't tell them because you are cisgender passing. Like, you look like a woman, you sound like a woman, you identify as a woman, so why would you tell them on a first date, right? If it's just a date and you're not looking to hook up afterward or something.
Even if I was on a date with someone and we went out a couple times and then that person said, well, I'm actually transsexual, I don't think my first impression in that scenario...
That's not a term that is used.
What? Huh?
Transsexual?
Yeah, transsexual is kind of... It's kind of viewed as a rude and offensive term.
See, I knew I was gonna do one of those. I went into this knowing I was gonna say something offensive.
Well, that's one of the ones that I think people are unaware of because it's been used for a long time. Like what you were talking about on my show, like your grandfather would drop an N-bomb and you'd be like, "Whoa, wait a minute, dude." It's like, I love the Rocky Horror Picture Show, but it is dated. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Oh, I love it too.
Okay, so what is offensive about that term? Is it because it's conflating gender and sexuality?
I think it's offensive because people took that term, transsexual, and they turned it into the word tranny, and then those are just both connected. And tranny is like basically kind of like the N-word. Like I could say it if I wanted to. I don't use it as a term of endearment, but I know a lot of trans people use the term transsexual or tranny as a term of endearment. But, definition-wise, transsexual is someone who has had surgeries. So, kind of when you call someone a transsexual, like you could be accurate by saying they've had surgeries.
But it kind of implies tranny, which obviously, like if I was talking to someone and I say something like, look at that tranny over there.
It's a
clearly I'm not
term.
trying to identify this person. I'm trying to insult this person.
It comes off as a negative, Robert. I mean, think about it. Think about just how you said it. Oh, look at that tranny over there. That's straight negative. And so, yeah, it's equivalent to calling, a Jewish person a kike. I mean, it's just something you just wouldn't do. It's really offensive.
It's almost like in the public forum, as it were, the response is always, well, yeah, who cares if you get offended? All right. I can say what I want. I have free speech. And I think that people forget that, yeah, you can. But just like you said with saying like anti-Semitic terms, yeah, you can do that. But you need to understand that whenever we say that's an offensive term, it's that whenever you speak this way, you're coming off to people as an asshole.
Yeah.
If that's what you want to come off as, okay. But, there's also consequences for having your free speech is we're going to think you're an asshole, or we might call you an asshole, or, but if I just walked around and just dropped just F-bombs everywhere I went all the time, that I would start to be pulling myself away from potential successful social interactions that I would have. Like I can't go to a parent-teacher conference and just call it, hey, bastard, how you doing, bastard? Hello, bastard. I can do it legally, and I have the right to do so, but I'm going to set myself into a category where my interactions are going to limit themselves as to how many positive ones I can have. And I think that's the same thing for like what you guys are saying, where you say, hey, transsexual is kind of an offensive term. That's helpful. Like when I hear that, I don't think, hey, I can say whatever the fuck I want. My first impression is, oh, good. That way, I'm glad you told me, because, that way I don't come off as someone that's insensitive to someone else, because I don't want to.
You notice I didn't come off and say, hey, don't use that word like that. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it was just like...
Yeah, you just informed me of it. Yeah.
In one of our recent episodes, it was right after Charlottesville, and the episode is entitled Fuck Nazis. I made the statement, and I firmly believe this to be true, is that, yeah, you can have your First Amendment right to say whatever the hell you want to. Absolutely. You want to come across as a racist, bigoted asshole? Absolutely. It's your right as an American to do so. Feel free. First Amendment. But there are social consequences to your actions. Mm-hmm. So if you start saying these words and I look at you and go, you're a fucking asshole, and I'm going to make sure I tell everybody that we know, and I'm going to drop it on fucking Facebook that Robert Stanley used these fucking words, it's my right to do that too. You know what I'm saying? And so,
right.
That's exactly what happened to these fucking neo-Nazi skinhead fucking Nazi assholes, is that they got fucking identified and dimed out to their fucking employers. Like they got fucking fired, and some of their fucking web pages got all fucking wiped off of all fucking social media and all kinds of shit. Yeah, you can say whatever you want, but there are social consequences to your actions. So, I mean, I have in the past said shit that I am deeply ashamed of in the past. And I've lost a lot of friends because of it. I just want to say, hey, look, I'm sorry about some of this shit that I've said. You change how you do it. And so if you want to say some truly offensive shit, fine. But if you say later on, man, that was just fucked up and I shouldn't have said that, then we as more liberal people, and using that in the small L word, should welcome you back to the fold. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I think that's where the whole like social justice warrior image takes that negative turn, is whenever we disagree about some kind of social justice issue and we immediately just hate each other over this one thing. Like we can agree on everything else, but this one thing we're different about, like I've never really worked
Clinton
that
Bernie.
way. And I think that okay, here we go. If one of you was, let's say, a Muslim,
okay,
we would still get along the exact same way that we get along right now. I would just know that that topic is either A, something that we can't talk about because it's going to affect our friendship, or B, that topic is really cool because we have something that we disagree about. Let's hash it out. And I feel like we get into some danger though with the transgendered topic. Where
it's only because people make it dangerous.
This person,
though. I think if rational people can have a conversation that you can talk about anything, even with people that you disagree vehemently with, you can still have the conversation, just as long as you don't take it personally in a conversation like this.
But could you be friends with someone that was bigoted against transgendered people? Because to me, that would be kind of like saying I'm friends with a racist, you know, or I'm friends with a homophobic person. Like family, perhaps, your coworkers, you don't really have much of a fucking choice, but like friendships, like it affects how I respect someone else if I know that they're that way. And I don't want to be that way, actually. I want to be able to be accepting to people, even if we have a difference, and even if one of our differences is that you're an asshole to a particular group of people. But I can't.
I have friends of mine that I served with in combat zones, and we've known each other for 20 years. And while me and some of these people are still cool, there's like, I still have 2 or 3 conservative friends, like Trump voting conservative friends. Now, me and these people are okay, but some of their friends I have had outright disagreements with, and I've gotten at least 2 outright death threats. Well, one was an outright death threat, and the other one was more of a passive death threat, just because I'm a liberal atheist. So with these friends, I haven't had problems with, you know, like them in particular, but their other friends, man, it's like one guy was like, he sent me a Google Maps version with an address and said, I'm going to bury your body here. And I'm like, screenshot, police.
Damn, I'm going to bury your body here?
Yeah, that's exactly what he said. Oh, and by the way, this liberal atheist has a concealed carry permit.
I get told to kill myself all the time just because I'm trans.
Really?
All the time. Like on the internet. People just comment that.
Like, is it typically like just in arguments, or is it just they'll find out and just say, hey, kill yourself?
More so in arguments, but I've just had messages saying, yeah, you should just go die.
Jesus Christ.
It's really frustrating. But I want to get back to what we were talking about a minute ago about dating and stuff. I think people view sexuality and gender and everything as very binary instead of the actual spectrum it is. When someone says, like, they're a straight male, they're like, I just like vagina. That's it. But they could be super attracted to a trans woman, right? And you don't know they're a trans woman, and you go on dates with them, and, like, they're great. And then you find out that they're a trans woman. And if you're open to the idea that obviously she's still a woman and you're still straight and you still like her, it shouldn't be an issue. Like, there are so many different ways for people to be sexually intimate that you guys will figure it out, right? You will figure out what is comfortable for both parties in any sexual situation. Like, that's just how it works for anybody, regardless of if they're trans or not.
That's a good point. Ari Shaffir has a stand-up that he recently released on Netflix that's just fantastic. But in it, he says that he has this really good friend that's a gay guy, and they're having a couple beers, and they're leaving, and the guy's always hitting on him. He's always saying, I'm straight, quit hitting on me, man. But, it's kind of like a joke between them. It's not a big deal. But after they have a couple drinks, they're leaving the bar, and his gay friend says, hey, why don't you let me suck your dick? And he's like, dude, I've already told you I'm straight. I don't want you to suck my dick. And he goes, you're homophobic. And he said, how can I be homophobic if I don't want you to suck my dick? Like, that's not homophobic. He goes, it is if you think about it. And, like, as soon as he said that, I'm like, obviously it's not homophobic. But once he explained it, I'm like, that makes me have questions. So he says, well, this is something that would make you feel good. It's something that I'm really good at. And it has nothing to do with homosexuality. It's just you feeling good from something that I'm giving. And I kind of thought about it like, yeah, like if I didn't know who was sucking my dick, it would still feel the same. If it was a guy, I don't think I would be able to get an erection. I haven't been in that scenario, so I don't know, but I'm pretty sure that it wouldn't, I don't think it would probably get hard. Glory hole scenario, I don't know. I don't think my dick would know the difference.
No, and, it's the same... it's like men can be raped and that kind of stuff too, and many times during like a sexual encounter, sometimes because the body is just going to sometimes respond, and it doesn't change the fact that a sexual assault has happened. And so, yeah, I mean, your body doesn't know the difference a lot of times. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah, that's a good point, because you could be raped but still have an erection.
And there are sometimes happens where people during rape sometimes have orgasm. It still doesn't change the fact that they were raped or they were, sexually attacked. It does not mitigate that fact in the slightest. And so this is where like a lot of guys have problems coming forward that they were sexually molested or they were raped or whatever. Do you know what I'm saying? I mean, because of this stigma of coming forward, well, I got hard. Okay. It doesn't mitigate that fact.
That's a good point. Consent wasn't given either way.
Exactly. And everything about sex always comes down to consent. It's about what two or more consenting adults consent
and what
to.
What about with drugs or alcohol, though, where consent may not be able to be given, and the person wakes up the next day and says, hey, I didn't want that to happen, but the other partner had no idea that wasn't something that the person would have wanted. They were just having sex with a drunk person.
Well, that's the point where it starts to get legally wonky. You know what I'm saying? I mean, if a person can't give consent or is too fucked up to give consent, then you don't have consent and you need to stop.
But that would cut out like I agree with you, but that would if I had to give consent, that would cut out some of the like craziest sex stories I've had that I did have consent for, but I would have given, but I was totally jacked up.
Well, I'm just saying, because you can pull consent in a lot of ways. Say you're doing something or whatever and your partner pulls away a little bit. Now, they didn't pull away consent to sex, just consent to that. Do you know what I'm saying? I mean, so, it's like, okay, say your lover doesn't like to have the back of their knees tickled. You know what I'm saying? And you don't know that. You know what I'm saying? So you go touch the back of their legs and they pull their leg away. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I wouldn't like that either.
But, some people are wonky about having their feet touched. Do you know what I'm saying? There's a lot of different things where, consent can be pulled away. I was in a situation once where I was with my ex-wife, but we were still dating at the time. And all the time where she was like drinking, it was her birthday. I was the designated driver. She was with one of her friends. She's like, oh, I'm going to have sex with you. She got too fucked up to have sex. And I didn't have sex with her because she was too drunk to give it. I just think maybe that somebody who has sex with a drunk person, I just really don't know what to think about that person. If that person that they had sex with was too drunk to consent.
Yeah. Then you got the kink of liking being unconscious.
But then you should have talked about that beforehand. And
right, as long as you talk about it. Yeah, that's the point.
It's like, hey, man, I'm going to get fucked up, and when I get fucked up, passed out, you can go for it. But that's something that
Or I'm going to take these pills so that I'm unconscious. Do with me what you will, or something like that. There's some safety issues, perhaps, but
exactly.
But as long as it's discussed,
and that's given consent beforehand.
And isn't it amazing how we have weaved through talking about transgender issues, whether certain terms are offensive or not, how to determine whether a transgender person should talk about their sexuality on the first date or not, or during sex, or we have tackled so many very conflicting social issues, very crazy topics going on right now that people are vehemently passionate about, and yet we've just soared through this with just the simple path of trying to be accepting and understanding to one another and correcting each other where we need to and listening to the other person's point of view. And look what happens. If we could have this kind of attitude in the rest of society, imagine how quickly we would get through a lot of these problems.
Yeah.
And I'm not even drinking yet. What the fuck?
So one last question before we wrap up. I'll preface it with this. If I were transgender, I think I would feel a little bit frustrated, not just with the topics that you've already covered, which was very enlightening, but also with the idea that this isn't all I am. Like, I'm Robert. I'm not Robert the transgendered person. And it's almost like once someone announces themselves as transgender, that encompasses them, like that's just how we see them now. And even I might even be to blame for that, because here you are on my show and I say, let's discuss this topic. Part of that is because I want people that are transgendered to maybe hear someone that's been doing this for a little while and someone that has a podcast about it. You deal with these issues regularly, so you might help them understand how they feel. And maybe people that don't have all the answers like myself can talk to you and Matt and hear how to consider this from a different point of view. At the same time, here I am saying, oh, I have a transgender person on the show. Let's talk about transgender rights. And I wonder, like, is that kind of a problem too, where you're like, there's more to me than this?
It definitely is an issue. I think that's why a lot of trans people don't want to come out when they first start dating someone. They just want to be seen as a person and who they are and everything else that makes them up. Because, yeah, I'm a trans guy, but there's so much other stuff to me. Like, I study geology. I'm trying to build a school in Africa. Like, I have 3 jobs. I'm doing this podcast. I'm an atheist. I'm a vegan. There's, like, so many other things to me as a person, right?
Dungeons & Dragons player.
I play Dungeons & Dragons. I'm a huge nerd. There's, like, a huge amount of stuff to me, right?
We're both, like, huge Dungeons & Dragons players. I don't know about you, Robert.
Now, see, that I'm comfortable with making fun of you guys about.
Are you
now
not?
we finally have something. Like, every topic we've been on so far, I haven't been able to be the asshole that I want to be. So, but finally, I've got something, you geeks.
You're right.
So you're not a Dungeons & Dragons player? You've never played?
No, I prefer to be cool.
Okay. Well, I belong to a...
I've never tried it, though, so it might be fucking awesome. I don't know.
Yeah. I belong to a meetup group, and it was at a family club. I won't do the name because it... Anyways, so I go up to the bar. We played downstairs. So I go up to the bar to get a drink, and so I got a shot of black cherry rum that I put in my Diet Code Red Mountain Dew. Black cherry rum and Diet Red Mountain Dew is fucking awesome, and you cannot taste it. So anyways, one of the ladies up there was just like, Matthew, why do you play Dungeons & Dragons? And at the time I was going to college, and I'm like, look, I'm in college. I'm retired military. I did 20 years. I was a police officer in the Navy. I was a firefighter before I joined the Navy. I'm in the Honor Society here, and I'm the secretary and the adjutant of my VFW post, and I do this for fun. And the look on her face was like, oh. And I'm like, and I'm going to have a drink. And so, she's like, why do you play Dungeons & Dragons? I'm like, because I do a whole bunch of other shit, and I do Dungeons & Dragons because I like to.
Yeah, like this is my time to not be doing all that other shit.
Exactly.
This is my time to just do something just for some fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
that's cool.
Eric, talk about your character, your paladin.
It's a bard.
The one with the...
Thank you.
Oh, the bard. Yes, thank you.
When you said for a second, I was like, oh, is that too personal, Eric? Like you've been talking like all about this personal shit. Like I've just been digging into your personal life for an hour straight here, and then I heard you go, oh, and I'm like, what? This you don't want to talk about? What the hell?
No.
Eric, anyway, bard is amazing.
My bard's name is Phallic Clitoricus.
Amazing.
And he has a really high charisma, so he can just convince people to fuck him all the time.
That's what I call awesome sauce.
Pretty good power. I think we would all want that power.
It's like James Bond, you know what I'm saying? I mean, it's this whole thing about like Dungeons & Dragons people, like they always consider charisma a dump score. It's like that's always your low score. No. You occasionally want somebody with like the amazing charisma score because James Bond pulls pussy.
Hey, one day there's going to be like a gay Bond,
I hope so.
Like, you got to think about it. Like as like homosexuality becomes like much more common and accepted in society. I mean, we get better over time, right? We're going to be cool
think
about
the
it
uproar
eventually.
that happened with the female Doctor Who that they announced. Holy shit, you would have thought the fucking world ended.
Yeah, or when they had the women Ghostbusters.
Yeah, exactly.
Everyone's like, oh, you just like them because they're women. It's like, what?
Yeah.
That was stupid as fuck.
So there's going to be a trans Bond one day?
And maybe a trans superhero would be cool.
What would be? Hey, I've had a lot of fun talking to you guys. I know you're busy, both of you. Well, Eric is. Matt, I don't think you're ever busy, are you?
No. No,
Eric, you got all that cool stuff going on. What are you, the geology degree? Is that what you said you're working on?
Yeah, I'm getting a bachelor's in geology with a minor in biology. I'm doing STEM outreach at high schools, and I'm going to Seattle in October to talk at the Geological Society of America conference about STEM outreach and how we can get more diversity in STEM, diversity in STEM and people going to college for it, like for minorities going to college, because that's what I'm really passionate about. I'm also trying to raise enough money to build a school in Zambia for the kids that I taught last year because I really love them, And I'm also busy being trans and talking on podcasts and working 3 jobs. But anyway.
Along with helping with the Zambia outreach, and what was the other one you had mentioned? The one before that?
I'm doing a STEM outreach at poor high schools.
You can let everybody know how they can help contribute with that. But also, can you guys tell us how they can find your show one more time, and where they can find you guys on social media, or if they want to contact you, or if they're like me and they just have a whole bunch of personal questions that they want to ask maybe.
Yeah, for sure. First off, you can always send messages to our Facebook, which is facebook.com/OAF podcast. And you can ask me lots of questions about trans stuff. I really like educating people. Even though there's more to me than being trans, I want to help people understand what being trans is and that it's not that weird. I'm just a relatively normal person. And you can also find our podcast on our Patreon page, patreon.com/OAF. And if you feel really inclined to donate to the school I'm trying to build in Zambia, you can find the donation page at www.ucaring.com/build-a-school-in-Zambia.
We also have Twitter at OAF Podcast. And we are now on Google Play. That's something that's pretty amazing, as well as we've got our Patreon feed, and we're working on getting some patron-only content here soon.
And we're on iTunes.
Yeah, and we're on iTunes, so
all over the place. You guys are killing it right now. I love your show, and I'd encourage the listeners to check it out. Thank you so much, both of you, for helping me kind of understand this topic that it's not really new. Trans people have always been around, but it seems like it's new in the public discourse, and it's a little bit hard to understand for some of us, but I appreciate your openness, Erica, and talking about it, and the listeners did as well. But thanks, guys, so much for
your time. Have us on. We appreciate
thanks
it.
for having us.
Wonderful time talking to Matthew and Eric. They are actually Patreon supporters of the show. If you feel like the Odd Atheist Friends do and think this broadcast has value to the marketplace of ideas, I encourage you to go to patreon.com/right, RIGHT/right. There are many rewards that you can achieve based on your patronage. I want to say, however, if you're in a financial situation where going to your local Starbucks or coffee shop isn't financially feasible, don't support the show. Do not support the show. Put your damn wallet away. It's free, and I'm just glad you're listening. Please enjoy it without any concern for its budget. That said, if you're fortunate enough to be able to grab a hot mocha or whatever it will, know that the price of a cup of coffee per month is all that is necessary to make this show continue. Drop us a buck at patreon.com/right. Music today brought to you by Jason Camo from aloststateofmind.com. Next week is the anticipated reverse debate where I argue with the Christian apologist perspective against Justin Schreiber from Real Atheology. That debate is moderated by your favorite creationist, Kelly Clemenson of the Areopagus Project, and then thereafter, Hertzy Hertz of Atheist Talk Radio will review the debate with me. That's next week. Between now and then, keep fighting for your right to reason.